A big thanks to Finproof Wealth Blue Star Financial Advisory Services, authorized by Sanlam, for sponsoring this lesson. Welcome to Thuma Mina Teaching. This lesson is going to be very important. In the sixth lesson, we are going to discuss the division in Berlin, in Germany, and in the rest of Europe caused by the Cold War. If you can remember correctly, the First World War ended with the Treaty of Versailles, and this treaty was one of the major reasons for the outbreak of the Second World War. So the Allies decided not to follow the same route and would rather divide Germany into four. The USA would get a part, Britain would get a part, France would get a part, and the Soviet Union would get the east side of Germany. As you can see, the capital city of Germany, Berlin, is situated on the Soviet Union side, and the Allies weren't prepared to just hand over the capital city to the Soviet Union, and they decided to divide the capital city into four parts as well. This is a strange reality if you think about it. A country divided into four, and the capital city also divided into four parts. The Soviet Union did not like this division of Berlin and soon erected a blockade around Berlin to prevent supplies coming from West Germany into West Berlin. This was a massive problem for the people who stayed in West Berlin. How were they to survive without important supplies like food and coal? So how did the USA respond to this problem? President Truman decided to do something quite radical. He decided to fly in the supplies from West Germany into West Berlin. This was called the Berlin Airlift. This might not sound that radical, but remember, there were about 2 million people who stayed in West Berlin, and to fly in supplies for 2 million people every day was quite extreme. The Berlin Airlift lasted from June 1948 to May 1949, and in this period of time, between 4 and 8 tons of supplies were flown in every day. By the end of this period, almost 300,000 flights were made. It ended when the Soviet Union lifted the blockade. That same year, in 1949, the western part of Germany merged and called this area the Federal Republic of Germany. The Soviet Union followed, and the eastern part became the German Democratic Republic, the GDR. Let's move to the capital city of Berlin. Imagine you stayed on the eastern side during this time. Then these things would have been part of your realities every day. But suppose you walked a couple of blocks further into the western side, then the following things would have been part of your realities every day. Which side would you choose? Would you have considered moving from the eastern side to the western side? Many people decided to do so, and there was this great migration from the east to the west. Between 1945 and 1961, almost 3.5 million people moved from the east side to the west side of Germany. You can imagine how frustrating and humiliating it must have been for the Soviet Union and for Stalin himself, how people just so blatantly chose the west over the east. And this wasn't only hard on their ego, it was also hard on their wallet, as many people who moved from the east to the west were young professional people who contributed a lot to the economy. So how did the Soviet Union react to this problem of people just moving to the west? They decided to establish militarized borders between the east and the west. In Berlin, they erected a 43-kilometer wall between East and West Berlin, and a further 112 kilometers around West Berlin to keep people from entering that part of the city. Furthermore, a militarized border was erected in the whole of Germany between East and West, but it didn't stop there. It went further and divided Europe into two with a 7,000-kilometer border between East and West. This militarized border was known as the Iron Curtain between West and East Europe. I would like to elaborate on the intensity of the event that happened in Berlin. In the early hours of 13 August 1961, the border was drawn between East and West Berlin without any notice. Barbed wire was placed so that nobody could cross over, and if you were on the one side, you weren't able to go back to the other side. Many families were split into two that same day. You would visit on the one side and you weren't able to go back to the other side. There is even a case where a pregnant woman visited the eastern side and weren't able to go back to her husband on the western side. There are loads of stories like this, and I'm going to dedicate the 8th lesson only to these type of stories of the Cold War. Thank you for watching. In the next lesson, we are going to discuss the arms race and the space race.